Hi everybody, I want to talk to you today about vintage guns and vintage gun cases especially, and why they matter, at least to me. This one here is the one that's the most exciting for me right now. It's one I found at a old antique store yesterday. It's a redhead, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. I had to haul a load of calves over to Ramsey, Montana yesterday, and I went in an antique store over there and found this vintage redhead case. And Redhead made a lot of products back in the day, but I put this vintage Parker in here that has a redhead recoil pad. So I'll give you a close-up of it. There's the recoil pad. You know it's a redhead because it says so right there. This is the redhead vintage case. And there's the redhead right there. Anyways, it's kind of a canvas case with some leather accents, I guess you say. It's got this deal that flap on the top. So my little 16 gauge Parker goes in there real nice. I just find it interesting to have vintage cases to put vintage guns in. Now this is also, this one here, Redhead also made these leg of mutton. Most of these, when you find them, are in fairly rough shape because they're old and they don't seem to age real well. But this one is decent. And then you put break your gun down and you stick the barrels in one side and the stock in the other part. And that's how a lot of guys would, you know, they might get on the train in Washington, D.C. and take the train to upstate New York and hunt up in the Adirondacks for a week, and they could take their gun right on the train with them. Here's a different style of leg of mutton. And this one's unusual in the fact that the stock goes in this end, but it also has, this end opens up so you can put the barrels in the other end. So the way that works is like this. I'll show you real quick. This is just an AYA number 3 that I had showed you before as a project gun, and I need to do a video on that because I put this recoil pad on it and cleaned it up some. So let's just say I want to go upstate New York on the train for the weekend, hunt the Adirondacks. I'll stick my barrels in here like this, close it up, buckle it up, then I'll put my stock in the other end like this. This part here goes right in here. Shove it in there, close it up, there's your gun. Now you can get on the train and ride the train up to wherever you're going to go hunting, and you have it all in a nice neat little package right there. So that's another style. These are English gun cases. This one here came from a guy in Virginia, and I'll show it to you real quick. They usually have straps. This one's wood. This one over here is canvas and leather. Oftentimes they're leather. So this is an Edward Gale, and I'll tip this up here so you can get a good look at the gun. Actually, I might as well just put it together for you real quick. This is a nice little gun. I had never had my hands on an Edward Gale before, so here is one for you. For your viewing pleasure, like they say. There you have it. Great shooting little gun. I've shot birds with it. It's got ejectors. fits me pretty good for, you know, I'm left-handed, so there's a lot of English guns that really maybe don't fit me that well. This little guy here is a 20 gauge Charles Playfair. And this recoil pad is not a Redhead. This recoil pad here is from Fair in Italy. And they make these nice little recoil pads. They're kind of spendy, especially till you get them shipped over here, especially with Mr. Trump's tariffs. But hey, you know what? I'm in favor of the tariffs, so we just suck it up, right? And then here is the case that I keep a Churchill 25 in here. So I've showed you that before, and I'll show it to you again some other time. But now let's talk about it a minute. So why do I love vintage accoutrements? I don't care if it's vintage cleaning rods, gun cases, vintage guns. They come from the golden era, what I would call the golden era of the American upland hunter and English upland hunter. So what do I mean by that? It was a time when there was quite a bit of game. The U.S. made some fabulous side-by-sides: L.C. Smith, Parker, Lefevre, Remington, Ansley Fox, just to name some, Meriden. And my chickens, every time I start doing something, here come the roosters. They love me. So they'll come over here. Now they're having a fight because to see who can be the closest to me, I suspect. They'll work their way around here in a minute where you can see them. They're sort of a nuisance, but they're a nuisance that I enjoy. Couple of golden banty roosters. Here they come. They'll get closer here in a minute. Yeah, they like to get in the picture. There you have it. Pancho and Lefty. The banditos. Anyhow, those are the gun cases. One of the things that I enjoy about vintage gun cases, especially if I can buy an old vintage gun with the case that it was maybe built for. There's just so much mystery in that. There's so much of a story that will never be known, yet your imagination can make it up. The hunts, the heartaches, the great days, the sunsets, all the blood, sweat, and tears that generations of people, for instance, my Parker there was made in 1903. Well, you can only imagine how many hands that gun is passed through. And I get that my Redhead case that I'm so proud of didn't come with the gun, but you know what? This recoil pad on the back doesn't come with it either. I actually went online and found a vintage recoil pad, Redhead, and put it on here myself. And I'll tell you a secret. I'll make a confession. I know you can't forgive me of my sins. Only God can. But I'm going to confess to you anyway. This recoil pad didn't come on this gun. And I love the looks of a white line recoil pad. And I know that Redhead didn't make a white line recoil pad. There were some companies that did. But I decided I wanted a white line recoil pad on here, but I wanted it to be a Redhead. This white spacer in here is made from a section of white vinyl fence. You know, I'm in the fence business and build a lot of fences around the country in the summer. And I decided that would be good material to make a white line recoil pad out of. So there's my Parker, my little 16 gauge on an O frame, and a fantastic little bird gun. And I'll give you a close-up of my homemade white line. How about that? There you have it. And you hear the Poncho and Lefty over there crowing a little bit, so you're getting the whole 9 yards today. But yes, I love to look for I like to find old recoil pads and old vintage gun cases and cleaning rods that will complement these vintage guns, give them a safe place to rest. And you know, I think the interesting thing to me is the day of putting your guns in a gun case where it's got a glass front and everybody can come in and admire your guns is kind of a thing of the past. There's two things that happen that's risky nowadays. Somebody comes in your house and just all they got to do is bust the glass and take your guns. Or worse than that would be if one of your grandkids or children picked up one of your guns and accidentally shot somebody. Not just the tragedy of that, but also the liability that goes with it. It's just not worth it. So I like these old cases. I don't mind putting a gun in an old case. They stay so nice in there. They never seem to rust. If you clean your gun at the end of hunting season, put it in one of these nice cases that I'm showing you here that is sort of made to fit the gun. It's going to be, you don't have to look at it. You don't have to take it out and look at it in the middle of summer. It's going to be just right. When you take it out the next hunting season, they stay so nice and dry in there. And so just clean your gun, clean it good, oil it good, rub it down good, stick it in there, and it'll be right there. You can stick the case in your safe if you have a safe, and that's what you want to do. But anyway, that's my story on vintage cases and why I'm sort of in love with that that style of collecting. They can usually be picked up for really cheap. I got that one yesterday for 40 bucks. That's a little more than I usually pay. Some of these I've gotten, most of these I've gotten for free with a vintage gun that came to me. So I try to generally keep a gun in its case together just because, I don't know, I guess guns don't have feelings, but doesn't matter. I do. All right, God bless. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your vintage guns, and we'll share some more with you another day.